Hi there, my name is Celia Buchanan and I'm looking forward to showing you how to do this fun project. So we're going to be using Zebra's CLICKART pens and mild marker brush markers. So I'm going to flip my camera over so that you can get a desktop view and hopefully this will work. There we go. Okay, so these are the two products that we're going to use, and we're going to be painting onto one of Michael's wooden boxes. And they have so many different wooden items. And this is really about using the Zebra mild marker and CLICKART product on different surfaces, just to show you that you can use these on so many different things, and they work so beautifully on wood and blend beautifully. So this started off as a plain wooden box, and I'm hoping it's quite a large box. This is a 9-inch, and I've started to just transfer my design. So you can decide what kind of container, or whether you just want to use maybe a wooden shape or whatever to decorate. But all of the unfinished boxes or wooden stuff that is available in Michael's will work with these markers. So we've got a handout, and it's a PDF that you can get, which is just, we thought that this would be a fun thing for people to do either with their kids. It's real fun and easy summer project. In fact, I actually have a friend of mine who told me that her daughter's going into senior year, and they're buying these boxes and decorating them in order to keep their mementos and memories of their senior year at high school. So I thought that was a really kind of nice thing to do. So you can download the PDF, and it's just some very simple stylized flower designs. I'm sure many of you are quite kind of talented and can draw your own flowers, but if you want some inspiration, you can use these. Now, you might want to think, how am I going to get these designs onto this box? And it's very simple. You just need a pencil. That's all you need. And I'll show you how to start that, and we can get on and use it. So I'm going to put this aside. So I'm going to flip this over. I'm going to decide, I'm going to start with the top of the box, and obviously the box opens up and we can do some neat stuff inside as well. So I'm going to work on the top, and I'm going to pick one of the larger flowers. So I'm going to pick, I think, this one. And the way to, if you haven't done this before, is very simple. Just use a soft pencil. That would be something like, I'm using a 4B, but you could use like a 2B. An HB might be a little bit too hard if you're not familiar. Pencils go in grades of a HB up to as high as 9B, but a fairly soft pencil. And then just flipped, obviously, this is the back of the sheet, and I'm just using the side of the lead here to mark some graphite onto my design so that I can transfer it. And this would be probably more important if the design was quite complicated that you wanted to do. I'm going to put that on there. So I'm now going to take this and place my flower right on there, and then taking my pencil, I'm going to mark around the outline. And I wouldn't worry too much if you're not getting it exactly. Don't press too hard. The box is made of a fairly soft wood, so you don't want to leave an indentation. I'm just pressing enough to transfer the graphite onto the wood, and then I'll just give my circles there. I don't have to be, as I said, too accurate with this, because I can come back in and sketch around my rough outline. But if you're doing something that's a little bit more detailed, you might want to tape this down and be a little bit more precise about what you're doing. So it's pretty hard to see on there, but there is a design, and unfortunately this is a camera light thing, but there is a design. I'm going to just very carefully, very lightly sketch this back in, and I don't want to put too much pressure or too much graphite down on here, because I don't want the pencil obviously to show through the pens when I come to add the color. I'm just gonna draw on here, and this design had a kind of nice little circles in there, so I'm going to just lightly put those seeds or design in there. Add that. Okay. So you'll notice when you're working on wood, which is typically not the surface that most people think when they're thinking about working with brush pens and markers, etc. You're going to have a direction in the grain, and it's easier to work with the grain. You'll have noticed that if you've ever painted a piece of wood, that it's easier to paint along the direction of the grain. I mean, I can just, if I do this, you'll hopefully be able to hear it. If I move it that way, there's more noise because literally there's ridges. So bear that in mind when you're drawing. Just be very sort of gentle with the pencil. I've already drawn a larger flower on the side here, and this box has got a really nice kind of bevel to it. It's got a round, and that's the item. It's a Art Minds wood box for Michaels. So I'm going to start first and foremost, and I'm going to use my CLICKART. And if you're not familiar with these guys, these are great. They never dry out, and they've got some clever technology in the ink that actually takes moisture from the atmosphere and stops them drying out, which I think is very clever to do. Also, they have a button that you can depress here. So your red tells you that your pen's ready to use, and you click off, it goes back to black. But even if you left it out, you're not going to have a situation with it actually drying out. So I'm going to stick simply with black for my outline, but it comes in lots of different colors. I think there's 36 colors in total. There's different sets. There's standard colors, light color palette, and a dark color palette for the retractable CLICKART markers. And this is the standard set I think I have. So if you decided you wanted to do the outline of your flowers or whatever you're deciding to put onto the box in a different color, you've got plenty to choose from. So I'm just going to, this is a dye-based pen. So I'm being, again, quite gentle in how I draw, because I don't want to put too much color down in here. Wood is effectively kind of, it's almost like most paper is made from wood. It's made from cellulose, so you'll find that it absorbs a lot of color. So I'm just very, very gently using the pen to give me an outline of my flower. And you can always come back in afterwards and go back in and detail and change the thickness of the line, etc. So, and I think I'm going to put my detail on the petals after I have added some color using the mild marker. And if you're not familiar with the mild markers, these are really nice. They're subtle. There's lots of markers out there in the market, and a lot of them pride themselves on being very, very bright. And sometimes we don't always want bright colors, and it's difficult to get those subtle shades. So this is the brush liner. I'm going to take a nice green and a yellow here, and I'll show you that you've got a brush tip on one side. This is predominantly what I'll use. And then there's a fine tip here for detail, etc. So first, when I started working with this, I was adding water to the wood. You don't add any water to that. That's going to increase the chance of the colors bleeding. And if you're working within a defined area, like a flower or something like that, you maybe don't want the colors bleeding out. But if you do want the colors to bleed, maybe you're going to do a background, you can add a little bit of water to this when they're wet. They're known for not smudging. So it would need to be when you've just put the color down. You could add a little bit of water. So again, I'm working with the grain here. And these blend absolutely beautifully. And you wouldn't expect.
Somebody was wondering if you can use granite paper to transfer the flowers onto the box.
I don't see why not. You could use that, or carbon paper, anything. The only thing I would suggest is be careful of anything that may transfer, if the weight of your hand or something like that might transfer you know, color onto the box where you don't need it. But I don't see why not. Absolutely. I would think that would work fine. So I'm going to take some of this. This is one of my fun colors. This is a kind of neon color, and these really blend in beautifully. And you can go over the color. For instance, I'm going over the dark green here to get a really nice blend, and you can see my pencil through there. That's why you want to be fairly careful about how heavily you're applying the pencil, because these colors are transparent, predominantly transparent. I'm just going to come in here. And you can do, I'll show you some other fun things that you can do with the pens where you can actually tip them, and you can get some double colors from the one stroke. Take this. And you can hear when I'm going across the grain as opposed to with the grain. But there's so many things that you could do with these boxes. And in particularly said that most people, you'll have markers, you'll have brush markers, and I'm hoping that if you haven't tried the zebra markers, you will, because these mild markers are beautiful to use and they have these lovely subtle colors. That there's so many other surfaces that you can work with using them, and not to be just confined to paper, though they work absolutely beautifully on paper, as one would imagine. So, and if you're not familiar with who Zebra are they're a Japanese-owned company. They've been in the United States for about 40 years. They're well over 100-year-old company. So a lot of history and expertise and experience there in making these products. And these pens have been around for a fair while. The mild markers, I think they've been around since 2009, if I'm right. Yes, 2009 the mild markers came out, and the CLICKART a bit more recent in 2019. So made by a company who knows what they're doing when it comes to pens. So if you haven't tried them, I really suggest giving them a try, because they have these wonderful subtle colors. I'm going to come in a minute, and obviously it takes time to color this. It's a fairly big box. But you can see the colors blend beautifully. I'm going to take a little bit of a fun color. Take a little bit of this pink, which is actually another kind of fluoro color. I'm just going to pick out. It's difficult to see, unfortunately. I can see it. It's one of the limitations of technology, I guess. I'll see if I can zoom in a little bit and show you this, but I'm picking out some of the center area of this flower, the stylized flower, using the pink there.
Celia, you are going slightly off screen. If you could maybe lower the top just a little bit.
Thank you for keeping me there. Am I? So this box is quite large. So let me see if I can zoom in and see if you can see this. Let's see, 1 second. You can see the pink a little bit in there, and it's catching on the grain. It's kind of nice that. And you can always come back in, as I said, and work around this. And I'm going to color this central area. I'm going to use some blue, and then I'm going to draw my stylized circles in the center of that. Maybe I will shade with yellow. So these ones are pigment based. As I said, they dry, they don't smudge. And the CLICKART, which is the one that I drew the outline, is a dye-based pen. And this one, if it does get wet, it will actually bleed a little bit. This one you want to be a little bit more aware of when you're using it. that you're not putting onto anything that's wet if you want to get a nice defined areas or design. I'm just coming back in. Maybe I'll try another color. Let's see if we'll put some green around here. I'm so stuck on black. I really should be more adventurous. Whoops. Come around, bring out the green using that's kind of nice. I have to minimize my other camera there because I can see, you can see the green is kind of pulling out the green in the pedal there. Go back to my little my seeds pattern in here. And you could use these as just a guide. They're very simple shapes, but it's fun to use them with kids. It gives them something to use as a guide. And I'm going to put my stamen in there. Color. I'll pick some red. That kind of crazy. Do some red. So you can make this as detailed as you want. It can be very simple. You're working with a young child, for instance, or you just want something very, very stylized, or you can make it extremely detailed. And the wood actually holds a lot of the detail. It doesn't bleed or move around as much as you would think. So working on the side, I had sketched out some, obviously I've done it before, I'd sketched out some of the other patterns. Just going to grab glasses. Come in and I'll work on this one now. These are very smooth, very easy. I'm not kind of chit across the wood. It's working really well. The tips work really well on the wood. I've got some leaves. So you can decide if you want to work over the black or add the black after or the outline after. Let's pick some nice colors. Let's see if we got purple here. They're just so lovely and so kind of juicy the way the wood takes the ink. How beautiful that color is. Hopefully you can see that. I'm just spinning this around because it's easier for me to rest my hand on the box. It's obviously not a uniform kind of shape like a piece of paper, so but it's still pretty easy to work with. I think I'm going to go back to that fun pink that I had. We'll put some of that in there, the kind of florally, orangey kind of pink color. And if you want to, and most of you, if you're familiar with working with markers, you can tip the marker, or you can get two colors to in the one stroke. So I'm going to take two blues here, and I'm going to just color the edge of the lighter blue with some of the darker, and it's going to take some of the color off of this, so that when I actually put the color down, it will give me kind of two colors, two shades. And when you work with it, it comes off. It just comes straight off onto the tips clean again. So let's get this leaf done. Leaf should be green, shouldn't it, really, ultimately? So thinking of other surfaces, and having a conversation about this, there isn't really any surfaces that you can't work with these. You may have to put some form of preparation onto the surface. If, for instance, you were working on metal, you might have to put something like a matte Mod Podge or something on there, or glass, in order to have the color accept onto something that's a non-absorbent surface, such as glass or metal. Wood is extremely absorbent. Untreated wood is extremely absorbent. So it takes the color really, really beautifully indeed. So you can see these colors are beginning to pop. I'll just hold them up a little bit. And I'll work on to right. And you can make these up as you go along. You don't have to, as I said, follow the designs. They're just really as a guide, and you can make them larger and brighter. And take this there. It gives me a guide to follow for adding more colors. Let's see, what shall we have? We haven't had these guys yet. So there's in the mild marker, there are 25 colors. As I said, they're pigment based, and you've got the brush tip. And if you want to, you could also come in and use, and I won't use it on that one, but there's that fine tip where if I want to put some dots down in the center of my flower here, hopefully you can see that shows up. And these colors, as I said, they're transparent, so whatever color is underneath there will affect the one that you're putting on top. So kind of bear that in mind when you're thinking about your design. So some of the questions might be, well, what do we do to protect this if I want to put some sort of sealant over the top of this? As you're working with two different types of ink, mild marker is a pigment-based ink, which does not smudge. It is water-based, but when it's dry, it is no longer soluble in water. The CLICKART is a dye-based ink, and it is water-soluble and water-based. So my recommendation would be to use something that is not water-based, something like a wax, a beeswax type polish or sealant for wood. And if in doubt, do a test on something that's obviously not the piece of work that you just spent hours doing, because it would be, I can't obviously guarantee what's in every single type of polish or wood finish, but I know that Michael's has a lot of different stuff like that in the store. So probably asking us an associate, and definitely do a test to make sure that you're not going to put something on here which might bleed the CLICKART, and it would be the CLICKART that I would be most concerned about actually bleeding if it had water in the finish that you're putting on there. A lot of aerosol finishes sometimes have the Krylon sprays, etc., are water-based. So again, you might be able to do a very, very light spray with that and then build up layers, but do a test beforehand just to make sure that it doesn't move your lines around and cause things to bleed. But otherwise, these they're not going to go anywhere. And if you want to leave it unfinished, it's completely okay to do that as well. So let's pick a color. I'm going to take some green. Let's do this one. I'm going to use the fine tip. I'm just going to come in here and work with that in a small confined area. What color to put in the middle now? I think light blue, why not? And I think I'm going to shade it with some purple. So I said these blend beautifully. Blue there. Giving your center of your flower a little bit of dimension. Give it some shading. I'll do one more and then we'll do the interior of the box. Show you that I've you can always give somebody a surprise. And this is a nice sort of thing to use for a gift for somebody. As I said, a friend had mentioned that her daughter and her classmates are painting these to make keepsakes for their senior year at high school, which I think is a lovely thing to do. But you maybe want to give somebody a gift and give them, rather than just give them the gift in a traditional paper or cardboard box, you could paint a box for them and put the gift in there, and then they've got two gifts for the one occasion. I'm going to just come round in there and have that disappear behind the leaf. As you can see, the colors pretty much cover. If you're faint with the pencil, you're not heavy with it, it should cover the pencil, and so you don't have to worry too much about being exact and precise, because that can sometimes be a little bit stifling when you're trying to be creative if you've got to be super precise with something. I'm going to you can use the mild marker, the mild line, excuse me, as well to go in and use for detail. Now do that as well. That will bleed less, or have less of a tendency to bleed. So you can use that to go out and line around. The only thing they don't have is a black in that, but they do have a dark brown, for instance. So if I wanted to, I could take the dark brown in here and darken my line. And if you only want to work with the mild markers, that's totally okay. You can do that. Just know that there isn't a black in it. But other than that, there's a massive range of colors. As I said, there's 25 colors to choose from there. So to take some gray, we'll work with the gray here. Make this a bit more monochromatic. And you could have vines and all sorts of things going across this as well. It really leaves it up to your imagination of how much decoration, how much time you want to spend on the box. Whatever that. I could sit and draw all day here, but it's going to be maybe take me a little bit more than an hour to do that. So I'm doing more kind of motif type images. I love this this gray. It's really actually a very subtle, nice color. Sometimes black can be a little overpowering. It's nicer to use some of these other variants of color. Let's let me think, what color shall I use? I think I'll use this one. This is my kind of neon color. As I said, it kind of, the camera bleaches it out a little bit, but it's really quite nice. Still very subtle, but you can definitely see it against the wood. And remembering that you're working on a wooden surface which has its own color. It's not a white paper, even though it's a very light colored wood. It still has a very, very subtle wood shade, a neutral shade there that will affect the colors that you're putting on top. And if you just bring the color, if you bring the pen into the gray as it is here, whatever color you have in there, you can actually blend them beautifully. They do blend very easily if you want that subtle gradation of color. I'm gonna go for orange. Seems like it might be a nice color. Rich. You can see these really don't bleed at all. They work really well on the wood. This is actually, I would say, one of the nicest markers I've used on wood, that it doesn't move at all, and it's not always the case with some of the other brush markers I've used. They all have different qualities, obviously, but it's nice that these don't bleed lots, because when you're working with wood, that's always a risk that it's going to bleed. Some of those sort of fluidal colors kind of disappear a little bit. I'm going to take my red, I'm going to take my blue, like that, and of course I can now know it's open. Will work. Okay. Orange. A little bit of red. I feel that needs to be popped out. Again, hard to see those colors just with the camera. I'll take my, just give me a little bit of shading, and these fine tips are really nice. They work really well for doing the detail. All of these little dots in, why not? Okay, so let's look about, got one on the top. Obviously, you're going to sit and decorate it and add detail and change the depth of line. want to give it a little bit more kind of drama rather than having the same depth of line. You want to give a bit more of a shaded look to your flower. So in my finished sample, I'm just going to put this over here for a minute and show you. I'm a messy artist. I tend to pull everything out of the packets and throw all of my. So I drew something in the inside of the box. I thought that was kind of cute for somebody to open up and maybe they take their gift out, or they've got stuff in there and there's something at the bottom. And also you've got an opportunity to work on the lid as well. So one of the challenges you have is obviously working in the interior of your box with, if you're going to use the template. So just cut it out if that's what you're going to do. I'm actually going to just take my pencil, if I can find it, and hand draw one. I'm just going to do a real simple flower in the bottom. I'm going to start with my circle. I'll get out and get the petals. Make this nice and big. A little harder to work in here, obviously, because of the confined space. And it'd be really nice, I think, to see for some of you guys out there who are very talented and proficient at doing botanicals, to maybe see some very realistic botanicals painted using these, the mild liners and also the CLICKART pens, because I think they would be able to handle that as well, to do something that was extremely kind of detailed and representational of an actual botanical. This is a kind of fun project that you could do with people of any age and ability. Again, a little tricky working on the inside here, but it's not impossible. All right, get some nice bright colors in there. That one. I'm going to take these three colors and work with that. As I said, you put a lot of color down, so you're not struggling to cover a large area. Like this flower is pretty large. I can get color down fairly quickly. Sorry, my hand is in the way of the, it's not really much I can do about the way of the camera. I'm really not, because I'm going to come back in and blend this, so I'm not too worried that the lines are not perfect. Okay, oops. Let's take some Again, you can see how these colors are blending there.
And to blend it, Celia, you're just simply adding the next layer on top, correct?
Just, yep, all I'm doing is adding one color on top of the other. I said, really, unless you want these colors to move a lot, because you're working on something that has no sizing or any treatment on it, it's going to really take the color. So unless you want them to bleed, don't add water. Just use the brush. They blend beautifully just by themselves, and on paper they're, you know, absolutely phenomenal the way that they blend as well. So. And it's just all I'm doing is putting the next color over the existing color slightly so that it'll blend. And you can continue to work. And they're really pretty robust. I mean, I'm not being delicate with this at all. And I'm working on a wood, which, you know, is a, you know, it has a grain and it's not paper, it's not super smooth, and they are holding their own. They are not, the end is not tipping or crimping or doing anything. You know, it's holding up really well. So the quality of these markers is brush markers is really nice. This is about next to working on something like sandpaper. This is probably one of the most hostile kind of surfaces that you would use a brush pen on, and they really do work well and hold up. And this is the same set that I did the first box with, and there's no damage to the brushes at all, to the tips. So I'll do this one. Okay, I'll pick some of the orange, yellow. Now I'm going to bring it back down into the pink that I've just added. Again, you might want to come in and blend that over some of the red so you get a real kind of homogeneous look with it. And that is because these colors are transparent, you're going to see they're going to affect whether, you know, if I have pink underneath this yellow, it's going to give me a really nice kind of orange shade. So transparent, and you can still see the grain of the wood through the color, which again is beautiful. All the natural markings in the wood show up. There. You're obviously going to want to take more time on this and spend time shading and doing various different techniques that you might utilize maybe in your scrapbooking or journaling with these. These will do all the same techniques that you would expect of a brush pen. You can do calligraphy with them, and they don't, as you've seen here, they don't bleed. So you would be able, if you're a calligrapher, and I don't pretend to be a calligrapher, unfortunately, that's not one skill that I have. So you would be able to do calligraphy on these wooden surfaces with these markers and have really nice, supple colors and effects using the brush stroke. So I just come in and you can see that the colors they're subtle, but they're there. And look at this center color that. One of the more dominant colors. This is a blue, comes out a little darker. I'm going to get a nice light blue. And again, this will blend. Easier if you work with the grain. I'm going to look across like that. It's just a little easier to blend them. and you'll still see little marks. See if I can zoom in a little bit, where there's marks on the wood, and it kind of picks up some of that, which I think is quite nice. Let's see if I can get us to zoom. Oops. You can see here tiny little marks where the wood, that's just the natural from where it's either being processed or cut, and these kind of show up, which is nice. If you don't want that, I would suggest that you take some fine sandpaper over the piece of wood and make it as smooth as you possibly can. So basically, I mean, beyond going and finishing, I'm going to go and grab my finished sample here. Oops, I think I'm a little zoomed in. I need to zoom back out again. There we go. There we go. A little close. So you can go and work on all of them when you're working on the contoured area. I've come in and done some little spiral designs. You could, this has been dry for quite a while, so I can come back in. I'm going to use my CLICKART. I'll put some more detail into the stamen. As I said, it's really just as much detail as you want to put in there. Little surprise flower inside. I decorated all the way around the entire box. I didn't do anything on the bottom, but I'm sure if you wanted to make a surprise message for somebody on the bottom, happy birthday, or their name, or whatever else, or maybe it's the graduation year from high school. But talking about other surfaces that you can use these on, this is a tumbler that I did using the MILDLINER and CLICKART. This is a stainless steel drinking tumbler that you can buy in Michael's. It was white. All I did was I primed it. I then put a coat of absorbent ground that's made by Golden that Michael's carries. Certainly online they carry it. And that changes the surface of this steel tumbler to being like watercolor paper. And you can get these beautiful, subtle color changes. This was again just the mild marker and the CLICKART pens, so these two that were used. And when I was finished with it, I coated it with epoxy resin, which some of you may be interested in trying, or you may already use it, but don't ignore the fact that you can actually use these drawing instruments, which are designed specifically for paper, or particularly for paper, but they really can go on to so many more different surfaces. I have a synthetic surface here. This is a synthetic paper. There's many different brands. There's UFO, Duralar, or Craft Plastic. They're either polypropylene or polyester, and the pens work beautifully on here as well. And just with these surfaces, obviously, because they're not absorbent, you don't want to, you want to have them behind glass, or you want to have them protected in some way, but you can still blend and do all these. And this was alcohol ink that I had stained it with. You could use it straight onto the, and that's where I tipped. I've actually pulled some color from the darker pen. I don't know if you can see that. I'm actually coloring the tip here. And I'll get two colors. Hopefully you can see that. There's two colors. There's a darker color along the edge and the lighter color. As I said, these blend beautifully. because this is synthetic, this will wipe off. So leave it to dry and then put it behind glass would be my advice if you are interested in exploring some of the different surfaces that you have in your craft room or in your craft supply that you've thought, what can I do with them? You know, if you're a scrapbooker or a calligrapher, there's so much that you can do. There's so many other surfaces that you can use with these pens. Then, if anybody has any questions or anything they'd like to add? As I said, the
I
final
don't see any
thing.
questions so far, but people are saying that it looks beautiful.
Okay.
They really like the blending.
The blending is beautiful. I mean, really, and I apologize that the technology of my camera and stuff isn't doing it justice, but the subtlety of the blending of these colors here is just, it's really pretty. And as I said, they're so easy to use, and it's open for all ages, really. And it's nice to know that, like, Michael's has got a massive range of these kind of objects, and to know that you can take something that really was designed for paper and use it onto a wooden surface. A lot of people wouldn't think that you could do that without damaging the pen, but as I said, there's been no damage to the tips of these pens. They're still nice and fine and sharp, and using it across the wood's been so easy. And as I said, you can leave it, if you leave them to dry a little bit for a few minutes, you can come back in and get more detail. If you're going to add something like the CLICKART onto color, it's always best just to leave it to dry a little bit for a few minutes. It takes just literally seconds for them to dry, and then you won't have any bleeding at all from them. You can come in and add detail. So find an area that I can come in and put some dots around. And this is the one that I did earlier. You can keep adding. It could be a project that could occupy you right through the winter if you wanted. So again, just to kind of, I guess, recap, the CLICKART is available in 36 colors, and they are 12 sets, 3 sets of 12 standard color, light colors, and then a dark palette. Okay, so these are not mild markers, these are in your standard kind of intensity, I guess, of color. It's got the fun kind of click mechanism. They don't dry out. They actually take moisture from the atmosphere, which I think is very clever, because that's always the nemesis of so many kind of fiber tipped pens. And then you have the mild markers, which give you these lovely subtle colors, and with a dual tip, whether it's a fine tip or your brush tint. And those are available in 25 colors in total. So much to do, so many things to paint and design. Oh, there's not enough room on my work surface to show you. Like, too much stuff. There we go. So, as I said, sky's your limit. Decide on what you want to paint and go for it. And if it's metal or like a plastic or glass ornament, we're gosh, it's hard to think, we're really quite close to the end of summer. That you might be thinking about holidays and celebration and table ornaments and that type of thing. And you can use these and get detail that is harder to get with paintbrushes. So you can get, just by coating it maybe with a matte coating of Mod Podge or something similar, you would still be able to see it was a glass ornament, and maybe you wanted to put something inside it, and then you could write people's names onto the glass ornament, that type of thing with it. If you're a calligrapher or you want to do some patterning, it's very, very versatile, as I said. And I like the fact that, as I said, you can just keep adding color and adding design, and they blend beautifully. And when they're dry, as I said, you can layer again, you can layer on top. So you can start off with something quite simple and end up with something quite ornate at the end of it, with a lot of patterning and kind of detail as well. And don't forget the inside of the box, or even the bottom of the box, and putting a message. Okay, I mean, I'm kind of finished. If there's any questions or anything we would like to wrap up with.
No questions that I see so far. Thank you for today's class.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you for letting me attend.
Have a good day, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.